Hello and welcome back to the channel. Hello Mr. Landfill, good to see you. How are you today? So, we are back to try and finish some ammonites that I picked up last week across the Yorkshire coast, primarily at Zoic, but also at Hosker. The one from States is sitting not finished, or will not be finished today. But I spent a bit of time this morning just trying to get some of these a bit tidier so that finishing shouldn't be too crazy complicated, particularly for things like trying to get some of these middles tidied up. There's still lots of grey and bits that look a bit rough. That will look better when they've all been polished, but the middles, where possible, have gone down to as good as can be. Downside is that little one there, its middle does not look great. And there's still a little bit of work to be done just to tidy it up. I didn't have a final decision on whether or not I wanted to keep it or not. Might yet just have a look when it's had a little bit more tidying around the edge, if it looks reasonable as it sits there, and then see when the varnish is applied. Can always come back and revisit things. But yeah, I spent a bit of time today. Even this one, you can hopefully see that it did have a big ridge on it yesterday, so most of this is now being cut down. You can see the pyrite content on it in particular, look how shiny it is. But yeah, I've had a go at basically getting all of the delicate edges and bits done in advance, so that today we can just finish them with a combination of the grinder and with a little tip on the air pen. This one's still got some work to do because this is a false mouth border here. With a bit of the rest of the ammonite sitting there, so there's still some work to be done just to tidy some of these off, but I've done a lot of the dirty work, I hope, already. I say dirty work a bit loosely here because the dirty work is about to happen with the grinder as we start looking at trying to smooth the matrix down on these and give them the finish that we ideally want. And there may yet be a lot of work to go to make things look exactly as nice as we want. But yeah, that's the plan for today. It's just to see how many of these we can get finished to a suitable level, and then varnish them up. This one was the Perrinoceros we started yesterday, or I started yesterday. I am not going to go through and remove every bit of matrix between the ribs, unfortunately. The amount of time it would take is not worth the effort, at least at present for me, but that's the joys of these. As long as I don't mess it up by trying to do too much right now, I can always come back to it in the distant future, or in the not too distant future as the case may be. But we can still get mouth borders done, get this matrix smoothed down on all of them. And so yeah, that's the goal. I think we might start on some of the relatively straightforward ones, and then get to the more complex ones as we go. So relatively straightforward being the DAX and the two Hildies. This one I think we might leave to the end because I've got some more pen work to do around trying to tidy this little one up. Smoothing the matrix is important, although I think Neil said a bunch of things about the matrix, so I'm not sure if we want to trust a man who's that involved in the matrix. So yeah, that's the goal, that's the plan. Obviously give us a shout if you see or have any questions about anything I'm doing. I may not be doing it as I'm going to say correctly as the experts might, but I'm going to do it how I think it could or should be done, and we'll do our best to try and keep the things intact, but things may go wrong, things may break, but it'd be nice to get a few of these at least finished up so we can show you what they look like now. So yeah, let me start on this Hildy just because it's a lovely shell. It's got this false mouth border that I didn't really pay much attention to earlier, which I should have done to get it ready. But yeah, let's just prep this down and then have a look at what we can do with this matrix about smoothing it or not, because I think this should be a fairly straightforward finish. Plenty of arguments to be made about tapping it and just having the other side, but I don't think that is required, so we'll just try and tidy this off, and then we'll work on through all of them. But cheers for the shout out again, as always. and yeah, we'll come and go with chat. But yeah, so we'll start with the pen. We will end up on the grinder, which is an interesting statement, I appreciate, but we will be working with the electric tool to grind down the matrix. Yeah, we'll be fluctuating back and forth between everything, so just bear with as we go. And hopefully the stream stabilizes. Had a little blip there, so apologies if it gets a bit unsteady. I don't know why it would be after several days of fairly stable streaming, but yeah, we'll just keep an eye on it. And, yeah, let's crack on. Yeah, hey Finn. So longest you've spent prepping something so far, longest is the Harpo temple size. Almost finished. Yeah. So the longest I've ever spent prepping something is the Clevy block that I did on stream 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, because last week I was away, or last week I was fossiling, the week before was Clevies, I think. So yeah, it was basically a full week of prepping on stream of that single Clevy block with, I think it ended up being 60-ish ammonites in it. Most are like 10p sizes or smaller, so like 2 centimeters across or smaller. There's a little Lito, possibly 2 in there. And yeah, so I think Mr. Landfill very kindly did the maths on it at 16.5 hours based on just streaming time. So take that how you will, if that's a fair assessment on prep time. And then it's gone off to Sean to finish. So yeah, it's I am very sympathetic to that feeling of you spend a lot of time and it's still not done and you're still not gonna be fully there. I think there's also a level of the more you prep, the more you find wrong with your preps, at least what you know is possible. I think sometimes that's also a curse, is that you know that there can be better ammonites out there, and so you think that all of them should be as good as the best ones, and sometimes they're just not preserved enough. So it's tricky to convince yourself that you've done the best prep you can, especially if you have. But I mean, sometimes you know you can do better, but also because we know that there's sometimes just better preserved ammonites out there. This one is a fun one. So we knew it was broken. That there's a nice broken bit. But then trying to tidy the mouth border, there's a nice broken section again of shell, which I'm assuming must have been one of the bits that goes in here. That's collapsed into where I'm going to call the body chamber. So we're just tidying that up now. And then yours. Yeah, I'd say Finn, the Gracile blocks are very much like the Clevy blocks. They're all either pyritic as hell, which is the usual case, or they're calcitic as all hell, and therefore tricky in their own ways. And then yeah, you not having to keel out is exactly. Again, I don't want to just keep saying, look at mine. My Harpo block, I did some prep on it and had exactly the same challenges, I suspect, and that I prepped down through the middle and then left left a lot of bits on the edges not as complete as they could be. So there came a level of just I was not doing any benefit to the middle with my prep skills or tools, and so I stopped and gave that across to Sean as well. Although he has then, when he picked it up, he's like, oh yeah, I can do the edges as well, because I'd forgotten to even look at the edges, or at least all the way around. There are some bits that were there, but yeah, there's an interesting balancing act of what is the appropriate amount to do with any given fossil, and also what can you do and how much is your time worth to you, etc. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep working on this, just keep tidying this little section off. I'm expecting it's not even going to need a proper grind, at least through here with the grinder, just because I think we can probably do it with the tool, with the air tool. If we just gently go side to side, we have to be a bit careful. You go too aggressive, you break your tip, which then not ideal because it makes it a dull tool. Don't want dull tips. That's bad for prep. But yeah, the keel's fairly nicely exposed, at least most of the way around. I'm not sure if there is, or if we can do anything for this section. I might just leave that as is. Anyway, but yeah, we'll just tidy this a bit in the middle still, because we can. And then yeah, that might not even get a proper grind to it, because I don't think it will add anything. whilst I'm sitting here and faffing with this, though, I did just remember a video I saw yesterday from the Etches collection. For those who don't know, Steve Etches has been collecting for a huge chunk of his life, and on the south coast in Kimmeridge they have a museum dedicated to his lifetime's work in collecting, and he's got a fabulous collection. But they had they have a very good social media presence, but they had a video out yesterday or recently with a gorgeous big ammonite. I don't know which one it was, one of the Kimmeridgian ones, I suspect, and it's the biggest one in their collection. But they haven't even prepped it all the way down to the middle, and they basically said they don't need to. It shows off what they're trying to show off with it. Even though the middle is likely there, there's an interesting debate on like what is the appropriate amount of work to do to fossils. And if you don't need to expose them all the way to the middle, do you do it? Especially if it's just not going to be on display, if it's not got a purpose. What is the right amount of work to spend on it? And I don't have a good answer for anyone. I think everyone's got their own preference for what things should look like. And there's also a scientific level, there's an artistic level, there's a personal level, and yeah. So I think we'll all have some fun when I get these done to the level I think they should be done, and then you can all tell me that you think it should be done more or less, or wish I'd stopped at X point or whatever. That's also all going to be valid thoughts. Yeah, of course I can show the bit. So this is the debate that I'm currently having as well, is what is the appropriate texture to have on the matrix. At the minute, I've just used the 2mm tip, the chisel tip. Whoop, let's try not to ding my glass too much. But yeah, it's a 2mm chisel. And I've just basically done it on a low pressure and just gone across everything, and it gives it a very slight textured appearance. Better or worse, up for debate. And then for the actual matrix grinding, I have a variety of diamond coated tips for smoothing the matrix depending on exactly what I need. So there's ones with a point on them, there's flatter ones, there's curvy ones, there's rounded ones, there's lots of different variants. I can't specify which is the best for you, but generally the longer flat ones I tend to use for smoothing an entire area down to one height. The rounder ones tend to be used for getting into and around corners that you're trying to make, and obviously mouth borders or hollowing out the mouth. It tends to be the round one. Everyone has their own way, as demonstrated with that one, which I did use a little bit of the grinder, but you don't necessarily need the grinders to do it. You can use a very low pressure on your pens and just use the tip of your pen carefully, and you can achieve a similar result. So they all have different things depending on what you're trying to achieve. So they are all diamond coated, little chips on them just to help the grinding process, so they don't struggle to get through all of this. They are special rock ones, but as I said, you don't necessarily need it. I'm kind of okay with that. We can always come back and have another assess of them as well later. But yeah, this one got a bit interesting with the broken shell going into the false mouth border. I don't carve mouth borders into my specimens. If you want to, you can. And let me also clarify that when I say I don't carve them. I don't deliberately create new fake mouth borders where possible. I do occasionally carve a mouth border where there is a broken edge of, say, a deck. Sometimes you get that mouth border just is broken. I will just smooth that down occasionally, just so you don't end up with a wonky little step. But that's when it's normally broken on prep. When it's broken like this, I'm not going to recarve a shape to make it look pretty. There's a weird nuance there that may make sense in my head but may not make sense to everyone else, and that's also absolutely fine. I think it's just the level of keeping originals versus versus the artistic flair. I definitely don't carve anything that is truly beyond the realm of the animal. So we do occasionally see super elongated harpos and hildies with their mouth borders and ridges that come out like twice the size they should be, just because they look clean to some people. It's not my thing, but each to their own, as I said. But yeah, everything's just diamond based just because they have to be for dealing with stupidly hard rocks like this, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that Hildy's done enough. We'll give it all a good varnishing or coating later, and I'll have a look at each of them in turn. And we could even do some half and half depending on how people are feeling, just to show you the difference between the two. I will also say they all have their pluses and their minuses for the tips. So this one, great for doing lovely cute rounded bits, getting into areas. There we go, so it's a little rounded ball basically. Great for getting into little rounded areas. Not great for trying to keep a whole area the same height, because it tends to cut holes into it, or at least grooves into areas. So then you end up bouncing between the different tips, just trying to smooth back out the mess that you've made. So I tend to use it to get into mouth borders, but I will also bounce back and forth, because you'll see here, mouth border versus the edge, they're in a different place, and this will need a bit of matrix in here that we won't be able to do with a grinder. So yeah, I'll bounce back and forth between things. I also have different speed settings on the tool. Generally, the higher speed you go, the more it cuts. But at the same time, you want to be a bit careful with it, because the higher speed you go, the easier it is to accidentally get it wrong and go straight through your fossil. So it's a bit of a balancing act on that as well. Kind of the same as the air pressure on your pen. Wish I had a way to isolate the sound so you couldn't hear the extractor when it's on, but yeah, so you can just about see, or hopefully you can see here, you can use the grinding tools to make a fairly smooth grind into mouth border. Obviously you can make that much deeper, can get a lot closer to the edges, whatever. You want to be careful when you get near the edges, because that's when you end up breaking off bits of shell. I tend to not prep all the way to the end at the minute whilst I'm still figuring out tools, because I can always come back on a really low speed and just adjust all of the edges of where the actual mouth border is versus what I've sort of carved into the matrix beneath it. But this also highlights the issue that I was showing, is that you get a nice smooth section, but then you've got a gap of matrix on the ammonite itself, and so we have to go back in with the pen just to try and tidy that off, and then you end up sort of bouncing back and forth between all your grinding tools and your pens just to get sort of a smooth enough finish. Again, what's the appropriate level of finish, that is kind of down to you and customers and individual preference, and how long you're willing to spend trying to make it look perfect. I think this is too big a round thing. Ideally, I'd have a half the size one, but the set I bought doesn't have one that size. I can buy more, etc., etc. But where do you draw your line? I think this one's slightly too big for the fine detail that we want. But I also won't use this to try and smooth this off, because you'll end up with lots of different bits that aren't right. And so I'll get one of the other tips on it to do that. Trevor, you are... Oh. Yeah, I apologize, we're going through a little bit of a pulse of terrible connection. Alright, sorry about that. Just let that settle down for a second. But yeah, sorry, Trevor, much respect for your prep skills. Yeah, it definitely will make a big difference when I get a dental grinder. As I've said to everyone, I'm kind of very restricted with what I've got based on my current income levels. And so we're working with Maya with a few different size tips and a Dremel, which I bought before Zoic brought out their dental grinder, and now that Zoic have their dental grinder, it is on the long list of things I would love to have, because it does look like it would make a huge difference. So that is on the list of things to purchase at some point, is a new dental grinder for doing this. I'm also not sure why my camera, there we go, seems to have gone very light with the color, but Christ, my connection is going to hell. Yeah, sorry about this connection. It's become really choppy and I don't know why. I'm not 100% sure why the camera, as I said, has gone a bit soft. I don't know if that's just all the dust that's now on the glass. It's just made it all a bit lighter. Yeah, geomagnetic storm would be a doubt, but I mean, it might be that we actually have sunshine, and so the sun is now interfering with all of our rainy Wi-Fi signal, having had so much rain over the last however long. But yeah, sorry about all that. I don't know what made it through, what didn't. As I said, Trevor, much respect for your prep skills. I do enjoy your videos and your guides on YouTube. So yeah, dental grinder is on the long list of things to purchase, and it will make a huge difference, I am sure. So yeah, it will be really useful to have a small, highly precise, high-speed tool to do it. But at present, we're having the fun game of what can we do with the tools we have, and what can we do to improve ourselves using the tools we have. And so we're playing with the Maya and yeah, the Dremel. Although I do have a smaller attachment for the Dremel to do sort of ideally much nicer stuff, but I have not yet got it all set up. Anyway, we seem to have stabilized our connection. No idea what happened there. Thanks for bearing with it, everyone. And yeah, we'll crack on with some more. Yeah, I was going to say, you are correct there, Trevor. The challenge with fossil prepping is it's a terribly expensive hobby either way around you do it. Unless you happen to have a good friend who's prepping for you for free, you are either spending a lot of money buying the stuff to prep it yourself and then spending all of the time, and that obviously is its own expense, or you're paying someone to prep it for you, and that is a very expensive hobby as well. Yeah, it's not cheap. Everyone's like, yeah, it's a really cheap hobby. It is up until a point when you're just happy picking up the stuff on the beach and happy with a hammer chisel level prep. Fossil hunting is a cheap hobby. When it starts becoming needing a professional to start getting your ammonites and marine reptiles out of the rocks, it becomes a very expensive hobby very quickly. Although if you're here, actually, I would love to ask you a good question about it. So, in the grey shell stacks, you've obviously got hyper ribby forms in terms of the density. How do you clear all the matrix between the ribs, or are you just manually going through each and every rib with a very fine tip cleaning the matrix, or is there a shortcut to that? There you go. I get to ask a question of the audience today. It's great fun. Yeah, thanks for the reminder, Mr. Landfill. It gets a bit tricky, and this is where it's just the limit of the Dremel and also my competence. Trying to get the mouth to be both consistently smooth, as well as then following out from mouth onto the matrix. And I'm not happy. Well, I say I'm not happy. It's good enough, I think, for what I'm trying to achieve. It's not perfect, and I'm also going to be my own harshest critic for sure. There is a lot I'd rather be able to do with it, but currently about as good as it's going to be. I might spend a bit of time with the 1.5 million and just see if I can smooth some of this off, so it looks a little better for looking into the mouth. It's not fabulous, that there's slight ridges and grooves and stuff, but that's also just part and parcel of the tips that I've got on the Dremel, so it's too good enough for now. These are all going to be messy. Might do this one. This one I think should be fairly straightforward. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Landfill. It's one of those funny things, as I said, is when you know how good things can look, it's sometimes very easy to be super critical of your own work, even if it's as good as you could theoretically ever do it with that fossil, with the tools you have. I'm not claiming that's the case here, but I'm saying we often are our own worst critics, for better or worse. It means, at least if you are being critical of your own work, there's always a chance you're learning to try and improve, and that's ultimately the goal, is to keep getting better. The downside is when you see people like Trevor, who not only preps at a fabulous standard but also does a lot of pretty impressive reconstruction work. Yeah, then you see what things could look like, and then have a very strong opinion on the quality of the work you achieve. So yeah, but we'll have a look, see at this one. I think original mouth border is there, or nearly all there, on this line. So I've got, currently it stops here as far as the matrix, but the actual mouth is back here, I believe. So we've still got a little bit to remove there, and then have a look at what we can do with this matrix here. And I'm glad the connection seems to have re-stabilized itself. I'm not sure what the deal was, based on the fact I've just got a notification that my wife has gone out to the park, or one of the sort of a play area with my son. This makes me think she may have been having a quick Google and booking things, which might have been why the connection went unstable for a little bit. But yeah, we'll just try and see what we can do with this. But I'm having a bit of a debate how I want to start this, and I think I might put the chisel on, just the 2mm chiz. Well, just to take some of that extra matrix off and try and smooth that down just a touch before we put the grinder on it. It's a bit interesting, I find, with at least the quality of the grinder that I have. It's doing like 30,000 revs. If you get one of the dental grinders, they do like 150, 200,000 revs per minute, I think it is. They move at a silly speed, and what you can do with them and what you choose to do with them are very different. But also I find with mine, like when I get bumps, kind of like, you know, if you have ever seen the rutted roads in the plains of like the US or Canada or wherever you might have driven, where you get sort of the roads that are like waves as they go along. Apparently it self-perpetuates, and I find that true with the grinding tools as well, that if once you get some grooves, it's very difficult to get rid of them, because you go up and down and up and down and up and down over them, rather than sort of leveling the lot. So yeah, I tend to try and do most of my leveling with the pens before pulling out the grinders to do like the fine scale leveling. Maybe the wrong way to do it, but that's how I do it. Yeah, washboard roads, that's the one. And yeah, so they are those ridgy roads that you end up, I think, look and feel a bit like when you've done the roughing out, you get all those little ridges on it, and yeah, the grinding tool, depending on the size of it, tends to follow them in and out, and so you can end up making the hollows or the grooves, the deeper bits deeper every time you go down, and you don't grind the tops off as well as you might think. So I either end up having to grind at sort of 90 degrees to it, so say these ridges here, I'd be grinding that way and that way intermittently just to try and smooth it down, or I just take the chisel tip on the lower speed, just level this out just a touch more and then do it. But equally, if the grooves are not as big as the grinding tool, then it doesn't matter as much. But it's when you get regular grooving, then yeah, it does, I find, make it very tricky. But again, if anyone's got suggestions for things to do to improve it other than just get a better tool, which currently out of the realms of possibility, but suggestions of things I can try with the current tools I have, always welcome to hearing ideas. And I do know one of the big things that I'm looking forward to is getting some more lighting in the box, because the box, whilst it is not badly lit, it is not as well lit as it could be, and I've got a few new LEDs coming hopefully this weekend, but possibly early next week, that will then hopefully provide a lot more light in the box for making prep easier. So yeah, I just have to be a little careful. I decided with this one to, instead of trying to leave the matrix sort of half down the midline, to just take the matrix down to across the mouth border and then below that, and so we expose the keel. It still needs some tidying, obviously, between the ribs, but then hopefully can get more or less a full mouth border, or at least a full mouth that we can then at least work with. So that's what I've just done there, and you might wonder why I'd done such a drastic removal, especially when you compare it to some of the other ones where I've done the lazy thing and just taken off like half of a mouth border. Yeah, there's a good argument to be said, take the whole lot and do it properly, but again, time, preference, willingness to spend the hours to finish it appropriately. It all comes down to what do you have a will to do, and there are no right ways, but there are definitely some wrong ways, and as long as I don't mess it up now, I can always come back and tidy these ones down the line if and so needed. And that is part of the challenge, is to know when to stop, so that you can always fix things when you get better, when you get better tools. What you cannot fix though is completely broken things, or where you've removed a fossil by grinding through it, even if it's an oopsie. So it's just finding the right balance. You can always copy and replace things, but I'd rather leave them as original as possible in my case. Yeah. And the problem I now have is I really don't like it being so wonky. Like, it feels weighted badly. I don't know how to explain it really, other than with this mouth border being pretty much the whole thing. I now have the challenge of like, why if I stop there, does it look asymmetric from the above, which it kind of is. And what do I need to do to make this side look clean? And I now may have given myself the problem that I don't think I can make it look clean without then prepping this whole other side. And I don't really want to do that. So this is why people tend to just do half of it and not start playing with the other half of the nodule, because you end up in a situation where you walk yourself into a corner, and now you have to figure out how do you get out. And I don't have a good answer. I'll definitely have to smooth this down. Yeah, don't know. Chip the bottom of the ridge. Yeah, I mean, this bit will get tidied in. So this bit will get tidied across. But yeah, this rim, yeah, this will get ground down as well. But it's now I've given it a very odd look, because how do you do mouth border? Yeah, I am filled with regret. Should have just left it as a half, and then it wasn't a problem. But now that I've done this, yeah, because now you either get a defined mouth and still have a big lump of matrix basically sitting up next to it. Yeah. So this is what happens when you try to get fancy. Teach me. Keep it simple. The whole saying about that, and something about being stupid if you don't. Hey Shirley, hope your traffic doesn't last too long. Never great being stuck in motorway traffic. Yeah, it's it's better. I don't know. I'm still not sold by what I've done to done to it. But yeah, this is a good case in point of like there is a reason that things are done certain ways because it's just the way that looks best. And yeah, apologies, you're also seeing little flashes of light moving about here, and that's just the wind blowing my blind around. And so you're getting light coming in from the outside world. But yeah, not sure I'm happy with it, not sure how I have to fix it, short of prepping the whole lot. An interesting one, and a good one to demonstrate that there are lots of ways to do things, and I say everyone ends up finding their way that works for them and what they like, and I'm going to say that is not the way that I like it. I think Shirley may also be winning the game of has anyone got some fun fossil plans for the weekend, because I think they're off fossiling again. As actually I'm out on Sunday. I got a tour, so headed to port, I think bright and early, like just before 7 o'clock at port, for an explore with a couple of people. So that'll be nice to be out. But yeah, let me just finish off the little bit here that I just want to make look a little tidier. This little ridge, and then yeah, on all of this. This is where you'll see that my strong suit, being the science, I like a hard and fast set of rules and things I have to follow and things that work the way they work, just because that is the way. The art side is where, yeah, my brain starts to have a bit of a challenge, and that's not always a bad thing, but it's giving me a challenge. The Dremel is not cordless. It is one of the banes of my existence. So no, it's the 4250. There you go. I do have an extender, which is a much slimmer version of or an attachment that is a much slimmer version that needs to be put on, but then you have to hold it in certain angles to prevent kinking. But basically, it's got a long rotary attachment on the inside than the little tiny handheld, which would be a lot better. Wherever I have put that. In my shed somewhere, which also is an indictment on my level of tidying. So I'm pretty sure that was two hand, but I don't know where I put it. Yeah, so it is a much smaller attachment, still obviously with a cord or with a wire attachment, but it's approaching the size of sort of the dental tools. Without quite the precision, because you still only get the level of rotary that your Dremel itself gets. So yeah, like 30,000 revs maximum. Sorry, I'm just having a browse in my shed to figure out where I've put the things that I'm looking for, but I'm uncertain. I will have to find it after this, because that is on the long list of things that I need to sort out. Presently, is getting that all attached and running, because I'm hopeful that will help at least a little bit, because yeah, the main Dremel itself, as you see the size of it versus like what you're trying to do in a box, it gets a bit big and bulky and in its own way. So yeah, it's why, if you get the chance, now that Zoic at least have an output of an air-based dental grinding tool, I would buy that for the amount of money it costs, because one, you get all the bits and everything. The Dremel comes in at not dissimilar a price to having it. The Dremel plus the extender plus buying all the tips comes in at not far off the 200 and whatever the dental tool from Zoic offers. How long the dental tool bits will last from Zoic, I also cannot say. I'm not saying that they're terrible. I expect them to be very good, knowing Zoic, but the fact that they send them with attachments, replacement attachments for some of them, make me intrigued to see how long they'll last before the little internal turbines all fall apart, especially at the really high pressures and speeds. But seeing they're fairly brand new, I mean, it's more out of curiosity and intrigue, because I would like one. So I don't denigrate them, because I desperately want one of them. And as Trevor said, they do just offer such a different level of precision and speed. It makes a huge difference. Yeah, I can't say I know all the Dremel numbers off the top of my head. There's definitely an advantage if you can get one that's small, but the challenge with small ones or battery powered ones is getting the rotary speed and the power required to do some of this. There isn't ever an easy solution. You're always compromising on something, even for the dental ones. They're all air powered rather than electric, so it's, again, you've got, depending on what tools you have and what setup you have, some things will be better for you. I don't claim to be an expert. I bought the 4250 because it had a higher power and it came with more bits, which turned out in general to not be that useful, but you never know, because sometimes I now use it for things around the house as well as not just fossil prep. But we're now also in the phase of grinding through some very high, incredibly annoying pyrite, so everything goes black and very grey very quickly, as you can see from my hands. So we'll just be a little careful, but I'm very glad I've now got the double cyclone setup and the hardcore HEPA filter in the extraction system, because there's a lot of pretty nasty dust that this thing produces. Just going to swap over to the 2mm chisel again, just to flatten out a few more bits. Actually, no, I might just stay with the the flex shaft. That is what I have for me somewhere in the shed. I have one. I have used it, but I do not know where it has ended up. Oh, there it is. So yeah, I have one for me. It will eventually get used. So here you go. So that's the actual tip for the Dremel attachment. It is a lot smaller. It's basically the same size as the airpen. So it will get used at some point, but it just requires a bit of a setup to make sure that you're not bending the hose, for lack of a better term, at any funky angles whilst you're using it. They suggest suspending it on on sort of like a hook from above, but I don't know if that would fit then into the box and all the rest, so I suspect it needs a little bit of thinking, and part of the reason I have not yet used it. But I've got it. It just, yeah, it's one more thing to figure out, and there's always more things to figure out. One of the joys, but also one of the pains in the butt. Yeah, so I have no doubt the flex shaft is game changing. As I said, I need to figure out how to set it up, and I have a non-optimal setup by every definition of it. It needs a bit of thinking exactly how best to do stuff. It would be a lot easier if I just had everything on the hoses attached to the air pump. That in itself comes with its own additional challenges. But yeah, the flex shaft will come into use probably over the next week or two as I figure out how to do it and how I now have a better extraction system. So I'm going to be doing more grinding and finishing. So. Yeah, hey everyone. Hey Katie, I hope you are doing well. Hope you're having some fun prepping. Bear with, I just need to blow all of this horrific dust off. I'm just going to remute. So we got a lot of grinding to still do. It's where Trevor, who was in here earlier, has a really nice setup. He's got a fairly long grinding tool that he uses that gets like the whole section flat simultaneously, rather than having to kind of do a piecemeal and then unsurprisingly ending up with an irregular surface. I do have some at least more horizontal ones where they're uniformly horizontal, which sometimes are useful, sometimes they're not. We can try. Need one with a tip on it. Anyway, try and get a little bit closer, and as you can tell from everything rattling and rolling in the sound, we've got some nice breeze coming through, which is good to keep the ventilation going.
Dangerous times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky in your mind.
Everything is acquiring that sort of dusty color vibe to it, isn't it, in here? Ooh. But yeah, getting there. It's a bit of a challenge with this because I've obviously need to have a think about it. Some of this will come away, but you end up with grooves still from where the grinding tools are working. So you end up with sort of lines that you can see, and I imagine if I go on a much lower speed and I'm a bit more gentle with it, they will go away. But I'm still just at the minute trying to remove. You might just see on the edge here, you can see that there's like gaps between where I can smooth and the edge of the ammonite, where I can't get close enough with the Dremel to basically smooth those out, so I have to do that manually with the nail pen. Mr. Landfill, in regards to your question, is there enough pyrite that we could polish it? Yeah, I mean, probably. I don't know if you can see, there's effectively a golden sheen running all the way around this section. You probably could. This nodule has been sat out long enough that I suspect it will eventually pick up pyrite rot, pyrite decay. So it probably isn't worth it. Most of this stuff, unfortunately, no matter how nice it is, eventually tarnishes. Just the joys of the British climate is that there's enough moisture in the air that pyrite does tend to go. But I mean, you can see, ignoring the flashes of light which are here, that's from the outside, that's not from this. But yeah, there's a lot of pyrite in these rocks. It's why my hands are a very distinct black color, which is pretty common with the pyrite. Also why I stopped doing any polishing until I got all the extraction, because I don't want my lungs to go that color. So it's getting there. You could probably do it, but as I was trying to say, my brain doing its ADHD thingy. Yeah, I think it would tarnish, unfortunately. Plenty of people do polished cannonballs and nodules from Yorkshire. The really gorgeous one I have is tarnished. It's just part and parcel of things, unfortunately. I need to give us another spritz and see what the mouth border is looking like at the minute. This one is not too far off. Yeah, Katie, you've missed, I think there's one there, and one there, all of varying quality in terms of the finish. This is a fun one with its broken shell and the body chamber. This one I have strong opinions about how much I dislike how I've prepped the mouth border because of the remaining nodule on this side. And then yeah, I think that's they're all kind of there or thereabouts. There's still plenty of work to be done, but yeah, they're going okay. But yeah, let's get this mouth board on this thing finished. I might then also have a quick play of just to try and tidy some of this matrix around this little one up as well. So a couple of things. Yeah, I mean everything rusts. It's one of the fun things about the origin of at least some groups of life is we can actually see it in the fossil record, or at least the rock record, because rust appears, and it's the first time we get diogenic. Was it diogenic? Whatever, we get oxygenation of spare iron, you end up with what's called abandoned iron formations, about 3.5 billion years old, I think they are. And in the rock record, it's basically the appearance of layers of rust or rusting rocks. That's when the first life starts to produce large quantities of oxygen in the atmosphere. And so, yeah, ever since then, we're all basically doomed to rust, and in some places where the humidity is high, Great Lakes, the UK, because it rains all the time. Yeah, rust. And then Shirley asked you where a face mask was using the prep box. Depends on what I'm doing. The prep box, when I'm doing heavy duty grinding, yes. When I'm doing standard prep, no. But I've also got my extracting system set up so that I have a noticeable draw of air going through the box and into the double cyclone and then through the HEPA filter, so I feel relatively safe. There's an argument to be made that even with the box I probably should be still wearing a face mask throughout, but I only am wearing one while I'm doing the heavy grinding stuff. Yeah, you've got it. It is very tricky to do that whilst trying to talk whilst prepping. It is a challenge at the best of times, and then yeah, trying to do anything that involves the mask even more tricky. So yeah, that's part of the reason. But just trying to figure out what I want to do with this mouth. Like the natural mouth border should be something like that. It's broken. Anyway, but just see if we can carve something that is appropriate without being false, shall we say, without making it artistic or over exaggerated. Let's see what we can do with what is actually there. What do you mean, Katie? Better than you? Your prep's very solid. Being very fiddly with this though. It's the one that's got that broken bit of keel. Being very fiddly, but getting there. Just going to smooth this mouth edge between where I've carved in. I'm not convinced that counts as carved in, but it doesn't need to be because it's not a real one. Smooth this off and then see if I can do another round of just smoothing across the rest of this, and then give all of these, what was it, 5 that we finished. Didn't get to the semi in the end because I won't quite finish that anyway. Trevor didn't offer me any sage advice on how best to finish it, nor did he need to, but it would have been interesting to have heard some thoughts on the appropriate best course of action for how to clean ribs, or at least the matrix between ribs. Sean's advice was you clean each of them manually, one at a time, which, I mean, that's what I'm expecting the actual answer to be, but I don't know. Didn't know if there was any shorter cuts or easier ways, and that's what I always look for. I'm glad you think so, Katie. I appreciate it. I say we'll give them all a rinse and then have a look, and then maybe even have a look outside of the box because the box is very dusty, like very dusty. But thank you very much for saying that they look good. I appreciate it. Right, let me give these a quick rinse on my hands because look at them. In fact, here, like, let's see if we can get gloves off, and I'll show you the color differential between what I should look like. Yeah, so when you wear gloves, it's not always just for the vibrations. It does help, but also does limit the dust. And I know some people get very sensitive to the dust, and the last thing you need is contact eczema or any equivalent versions of that from it. So yeah, let me go that one, that one, that one. Have I ever found one while smoothing? No. Well, let me phrase that differently. Yes, with certain ones that I knew there would be stuff. So it's like the middle lias and the Gramo blocks, where you always are going to run into something. It's usually another bivalve or something similar. So yes, sometimes you run into those. You kind of expect to see them, and you kind of are okay with just grinding through them. I've never run into anything larger, thankfully, because when you're grinding, you tend to obliterate the stuff that you're going through. So I'm very glad I've not run into something going, oh gosh, what is that? When I've been grinding. So yeah, pluses and minuses. I've definitely gone, oh god, what's that, when I've been prepping with the normal one. Kind of like that little one was a surprise. So yeah, but yeah, let me just give these a good rinse, and I'll be back with you in a second. Right, there you go. That's a pretty good idea of what they will look like. I wish I had a wipe just to quickly do the box lid, which is all a bit dusty. But yeah, you'll see these haven't been polished or varnished or anything. This is just wet from water, so it gives a pretty good idea of what they'll look like when all said and done. So that's quite nice. I quite like that Hyundai actually. Especially with the little broken pieces still intact. That's come out quite nicely. Very pleased with that one. Don't sound too surprised, Mr. Landfill, that they all look fab. I'm very pleased. No, I'm surprised that they look great. But yeah, the second Hyundai with its broken keel that's come out a treat as well. Needs a bit of drying for you guys to see the middle, but the middle's actually better on that one. So that looks good too, if I do say so myself. And this is the little double. That looks pretty tidy. The big one, the little one, less so, but I think it'll look fine when it's sorry, I'm just gonna have a look at myself. But yeah, I think that'll look fine when it's been varnished. That little one doesn't look too bad. Glad I left it on, so that looks quite nice. But you can see that ring of pyrite for when you were asking. You could probably polish that if you so chose, but it would be a lot of faff, and I would not be super surprised if this catches pyrite disease or pyrite rot, pyrite rust at some point, just because this one was in the sea when I found it. So very pleased with that. And then we've got another deck. This is the one with the mouth border. I'm not 100% happy with, but yeah, the actual prep itself is looking pretty good. So yeah, not upset with that. This the finish, as is always the case. And then the funky Rhinoceros. Yeah, I'd say I think that's pretty nice as a set for the week. So it's at 5 ammonites done. We're done to a suitable level. A very dusty semi, which I'm not going to give the blow off to at the minute, because we'll then ruin all the ones that we have done. Oh, I've never rinsed off my teeny tiny one. My teeny tiny one, my little Pluro, and then there's the other block that still has some considerations to be done. So yeah, that was the preps for this week. 5 that I would say are done, 2 that are works in progress, and a little mini that nothing more can be done with it. But yeah, very pleased, and a good place to finish as well. The lighting to be slightly better in here, but alas, hopefully next week the extra lighting will come, so the prep box will be even brighter, which will help for things. But yeah, I'm glad they've come out as well as they have. We'll put some varnish on them, or I'll put some varnish on them before the next prep, which will probably be Monday, just to get them all said and done. And I may yet finish this one as well, which is another funky Hildy that's just been sat in the incomplete pile. So we'll get some more bits done, and then next week, I don't know what we're going to do next week. Next week I think might be a bit erratic, because I think I might be back out on the coast quite a bit again. I'm out on Sunday for sure for a tour. I might be out on Monday, might be out Thursday. I'm out again on the Sunday, on the weekend, the following one, for another tour. So we'll just have to see. But yeah, keep an eye out for about 1-ish British time, 1 to 1:30 British time, whatever that is your local time. So it's at 12:30 GMT. Use GMT to your conversion. Yeah, 12 to 12:30 GMT time. And then yeah, we will be back with you as and when we can. But thank you all for joining. I hope you've enjoyed seeing us actually finish some things for a change. Need to figure out how best to show them all off to your camera. But yeah, I am very pleased with that for a week's worth of streams, chats, bits and pieces. I would definitely say the quality of my prepping is coming on quite rapidly now, and so I'm hoping that they'll only keep getting better for all the stuff we can find in the next little bit. But yeah, big thanks to everyone for being out as always, and as Mr. Landfill says, be safe, look after each other, look after yourselves. And if you ever want to buy any of these things you see getting prepped, shoot us a message or keep an eye on the shop, because they'll be going up there as and when I get around to it. But yeah, we'll keep adding stuff, and I may well be linking stuff that I've put in the shop to stuff on the streams. I quite like that idea, so people can see what's happened with their material from start to finish. But yeah, thanks all, and we'll catch you fairly soon.